And it is now.
Okay, so AmeriCorps 101, Program Basics. Again, we're just going to kind of work our way through your blue binder. One of my goals for this year is to help people have a better understanding of what AmeriCorps is, because we are all so dyed-in-the-wool Boys and Girls Club, and we know everything Boys and Girls Club. AmeriCorps is another organization that is just as big, and I think we have a tendency, I know I did when I first came to it, to really see like, okay, AmeriCorps can do XYZ for the Boys and Girls Club. That's what AmeriCorps is. And my mind is so focused on serving children in the Boys and Girls Club that I missed part of what we're supposed to be doing for those AmeriCorps members. So I'm going to try to make this video play. This is a video that an AmeriCorps member made. This won a contest in 2015, and I thought it was pretty cute. Do you like how I figured out to turn the lights off there at the end? That was just to make sure you were paying extra attention throughout. So AmeriCorps is, oh, I don't want it to play that again. I want it to go to the next slide. So AmeriCorps service can be a lot of different things. It can be rebuilding after a disaster. It can be working with veterans. It can be Teach for America. I didn't know that Teach for America was an AmeriCorps program. You can be rebuilding trails in national parks. There are all different types of service for AmeriCorps. But what is the heart of it is it's a commitment to a year of service by your member to serving their community, to serving their country. In our case, it's a 10-month commitment for almost everyone in the room, for your member, for 900 hours of service that they will log at your service site. Larry and Durant, they have education award only member slots because their kids are getting paid through work study. So if you hear me say 675 hours, that's because he has reduced half-time members to meet the amount of funding that they get through work study. But it's 10 months, it's during the school year. So when you're talking to your AmeriCorps members, this is not a job, this is not a JOB, this is not, like, okay, you're part-time staff. This is a commitment to serve for a year. The same, you can think of it as like domestic Peace Corps. That's really at the heart of it. It's a commitment by us to provide a positive place for your members to serve. You need to make sure that your member is prepared to work with your children and your families. I can't come in here and teach them a blanket, this is what every Boys and Girls Club is like, because we know that the Boys and Girls Club kids in Bartlesville are different from the Boys and Girls Club kids in Ottawa, because kids are just different, families are different. You have unique communities with unique needs, and as a site supervisor, it's your commitment to make sure that they're prepared to work with your kids. And when it gets overwhelming, which we know in a Boys and Girls Club, it will, you're gonna be there to help them so that they don't have to like figure it out on their own. When Jordan has one of his breakdowns and starts screaming at the pool table, jump in there. And no, it's not that happened in my club, it did. On my new program director's first day, he tried to play pool with this one kid, and we're like, no. But it's our job to make sure that they feel safe and supported, and that they have a good place to come and do that service. It's a commitment on your part to support your members and the Alliance in doing all the necessary paperwork on time. Again, I see my role in this as I'm the person who keeps the dollars moving. You need extra hands in your club. We've got those extra hands. Now it's my job to make sure that I keep the money moving so you can keep those extra hands. These kids have committed, these kids, AmeriCorps members have committed to a year of service. It's my job to make sure that the paperwork is done so that they get their living stipend and that they get their education award at the end. So we will go through all the paperwork that's in this, but again, I want to present it to you in a doable time frame. It's reasonable. We made checklists. I'll send out reminders. I've tried to streamline it as much as possible so that everybody will benefit from what we learn in the first year. And finally, it's a commitment by you and by me to mentor these young people. People come to AmeriCorps because it's supposed to give them job experience. They come to it because it's an incredible network. I know so many people, including someone in this room, who did AmeriCorps terms of service and it turned into a job for them. They found a passion that the deputy director of the Community Service Commission, the director of the Red River AmeriCorps program that are at the commission, like they started out as Teach for America. They started out as AmeriCorps members serving, and it can turn into something that just that network can get you jobs. So I want us to look at it not as these members are in a staff position where it's like, okay, I pay you X, so I expect Y out of you, and if you don't do it, I'm gonna go find somebody else. If you get a member who is not great with paperwork, you need to let me and Leonard know too, so we can all work together to mentor them, because that's a part of having any job. That's a part of preparing them to be professionals in their workplace. And we want to make sure we're giving all of our kids, our AmeriCorps members, the advantages and support before we just say, you're driving me nuts, you've got to go. Now your staff at your club, you can look at them and say that, but the AmeriCorps members, we are making a commitment to them to be their coaches so that when they leave our program, they are better prepared, maybe not all the way prepared, but better prepared, more mature, responsible adults and potential employees moving forward. So an AmeriCorps should change the lives of the kids in our clubs by giving them that caring adult mentor, but it should also change that AmeriCorps member's life. I hope I don't embarrass Adam, not that I've had any problem embarrassing him earlier today, but I got the greatest email from his AmeriCorps member, and I had hounding this poor girl about paperwork. I was pretty sure she was tired of hearing from me. But she sent me an email that she was like, this has changed my life. I have been so touched by these children. She said, her word was inspired. She was inspired by Adam and seeing him work so hard to make the club kids' lives better. It really can have a tremendous impact, and that's what we want. Not just for the club kids, but also for that AmeriCorps member. So that's all the things that we expect of you. What do you get out of it? 900 plus hours of extra hands to help out where you guys need it most. I've never been to a club that said, oh yeah, I got plenty of people for power hour, I'm done. Except for maybe Talent, but they cheat because they have the teachers in the school system. And you get it, I'm going to reimburse you 70% of the cost of this person. So that's one thing that you get out of it. Shawnee, and they're not participating this year. They love their AmeriCorps member so much they created a full-time position for her. So Deshauna is now on staff there. But she finished her 900 hours in the beginning of June. And by the time she exits, she's going to have close to 1,000 hours because she stayed, if you're going to get your stipend, you have to log hours in every month. Well, she became a full-time employee over this. Like, she worked a full-time schedule for the same AmeriCorps stipend. So, their AmeriCorps member just went above and beyond. So that's why I say 900 plus. If you get these kids, if they get hooked on the Boys and Girls Clubs, who knows what they'll do. You're going to get data on the effectiveness of your programming. we do the power hour pre-test and post-test, which I don't know if you've been doing that in your clubs. Everybody wishes that they had more data on whether their stuff is working, so their programs are working. So this is something that we can provide you. When I aggregate the data at the end of the program year, I will share that back out so you can see, you know, did the club members that your AmeriCorps members were working with, are they making the gains that we say they're making in our funding documents? Or maybe you'll have such great where you can create new funding documents and be like, oh, by the way, you know, did you know that 99% of our kids who go to Power Hour that were tested show increased academic engagement and are, you know, have their homework ready on time? And so you'll get that without having to set up your own system or do your own data aggregation. And I mean, and I'm trained in this. I commit what I send you is going to be good stuff. And Megan will think you're awesome. Which just, you know, just never hurts. And I can't tell you guys like how much I appreciate you being a part of this program, especially the folks who were a part of it last year. And all I can say is that when new opportunities come up through the Alliance, I'm definitely going to be thinking of my AmeriCorps sites and the folks who stuck it out and worked for me when it was tough and let me bother them by email repeatedly for paperwork. Because if you guys can manage this grant, you can manage pretty much anything. So I really will think you're awesome. What does our AmeriCorps program look like specifically? So AmeriCorps can be all of these different things. Members commit to serve 900 hours or 675 by June 30th. Why June 30th? Our program focuses on Power Hour. So we're focusing on times that kids have homework. So we're hoping that most of their hours are done, their data's turned in, everything, you know, shortly after the end of the school year. But again, life happens. People get sick, children get sick, they need some buffer time to hit that 900. That's why we said June 30th on this. And again, if they hit June 30th and they're not there, we actually have till the end of August. But we're aiming for June 30th so that we can wrap up this year and not kind of be doing like we're doing right now, where we're wrapping up one program year and simultaneously starting another. I'm hoping to build in some downtime for your sanity and for mine. Sorry, Leonard, I don't care about your sanity. Just welcome to the rodeo. No. Our goal is to show increased academic engagement for 70% of the club members who participate. We are going to measure that using the Power Hour pre and post tests. And we want 70% of the kids who, we want 100% of the kids who participate, but at least 70%. This is what I've promised the federal government. So that's where that number comes from. Your members are going to serve alongside other staff in Power Hour. They should not replace the staff person who's in Power Hour. They're going to coordinate incentive programs, which is a part of the larger Power Hour doxology, theology curriculum, so that we're encouraging kids for doing their homework. We're encouraging them for every academic success that we can think of to get them invested. It doesn't make sense to tell a 6-year-old that this will help you get into college one day. College is 12 or 13 years down the road, and what they care about is who sat next to them at lunch and when they get to go to the playground. So we need to put short-term, immediate rewards right in front of these kids. That's what your AmeriCorps members should be doing for the kids that they're tracking. Everything from high fives to stickers to working with you to coordinate things like if your club can do ice cream parties or pizza parties, they can go out and, if you have a golf tournament, they can't go out and raise funds for your golf tournament, but they can go to the Pizza Hut or the Mazzios and say, hey, I have some kids who've been working really hard to do their homework every day. Can you donate some pizzas for a pizza party on Friday? They can do things like that. That's their job. It's good for your kids. It's extra hands that you can send out to do something that you would, think if you've had things rolling around in your mind that you would like to share that with your AmeriCorps member. They can also lead BGCA targeted programs. BGCA targeted program is defined in this grant as anything with a curriculum. If BGCA releases a curriculum package or a guide or a how-to, we will call it a targeted program. So you need somebody to lead Passport to Manhood, your AmeriCorps member can do that as long as they're doing it. You want somebody to do Smart Girls, Healthy Habits, Triple Play. You know, there are a bajillion different types of triple play to do. Fine Arts, Youth of the Year. They can coordinate things like that. Anything that is a BGCA program. I say BGCA targeted program because what we don't want to happen is you're like, hey, AmeriCorps member, here are 20 kids, go for it. You know, and that works for my particular personality. I can do that, but I don't expect all of your AmeriCorps members to just be able to walk in and go, okay, this is arts class. We're going to start with, you know, the concept of line today. Let's, you know, we don't want them to have to wing it. And again, I promised the federal government that we're using evidence-based programs, and so all of your BGCA programs are evidence-based. Boys and Girls Club of America has put a lot of time and a lot of money into making sure that these programs work before they come to us. So let's make it easy on ourselves and on our members and use those. Members, and moving on, members are allowed to go into the community to recruit volunteers for Power Hour and BGCA targeted programming. They can go to Kiwanis, Rotary, parent-teacher meetings, things like that, and talk about your Boys and Girls Club and talk about the programming that you do. It is not the member's responsibility to background check those volunteers. Think of your member as the bookends. They go out, they talk up the club, they're like, I'm an AmeriCorps member, I serve in the Boys and Girls Clubs of Durant, and it's awesome. This is the difference we make in kids' lives by helping them get their homework done. Do you want to come volunteer? That person comes in, they fill out the application. It's your club's general volunteer procedure. And then once they're in Power Hour, your AmeriCorps member should totally be like, hey, I met you at Rotary. Let me introduce you to little Johnny. You know, he's doing his multiplication tables. Can you sit down and help with him? So the AmeriCorps member gets them in and can support them once they're in there. But that background check process is your club's and training, however you train your members. That's up for your club. So that's what our program looks like specifically. They do Power Hour, BGCA targeted programs, and they can go out into the community for you. They can also use their time if you have a member who's really good with graphics or a member who's a really good writer. You can say, I would love to have a trifold brochure about our program. I would love to have a flyer or something that I can put in people's hands. They can use their AmeriCorps member time to do that for you too. In your binder, under the first blue page, AmeriCorps 101, there's a set of sheets. We won't go through these in detail, but it describes the program and answers basic questions. So if you have a member who's like, what's my education award again? Or do I qualify for insurance or child care through this? You know, that will tell you those kinds, that kind of information. And after that document is an outline of our reporting measures for the grant as a whole. Again, I won't go through that in super detail, but again, that's good to have if you're like, why are we doing pre and post tests? Where are those supposed to go?
On the permission forms, would it be acceptable to use passive permission forms? So where the kids can opt out if their parents aren't cool with them participating in this kind of program? Because getting I think we had 60 last year, the permission forms we had to get back. That was a big struggle, especially with some of our younger kids.
Okay.
Or passive permission forms, if that's something that would be okay.
Let me ask about that.
Okay.
Because it's not a passive permission form that's in the Power Hour packet right now. So but that's a good question. Yeah, getting parents to turn things back in is sometimes like blood out of a turnip, as my grandmother used to say. But that's a great question. Things you wouldn't know unless you've done the program before. Here's just a list. Somebody asked me once for a list of BGCA targeted programs. So I can print these out for you guys or email everybody this. But this was just like anything that has a curriculum, but mine just sitting down and thinking about it. And you know that Smart Moves and Career Launch are required in your DHS grants. You need to be teaching that anyway. A lot of people I call at the end of the year going, you haven't turned in anything for Career Launch yet. Make your AmeriCorps member do it then. Healthy Habits is a part of your DMH grant, along with like Triple Play. So again, things that because you're receiving money for it somewhere else doesn't mean that your AmeriCorps member can't do it. Let them help you meet your obligations for those targeted programs. All of this money should work together to make your club stronger, not to make you feel like, oh, I have another report for Megan. Because you'll feel like that anyway. Members should not be assigned open gym time, playground time, open rec time. That is, we'll talk about that some more when we get into the prohibited activities. That's a staff position. That's not a BGCA curriculum. And I think that's where probably in our prohibited activities we have the hardest time, because folks call in sick, somebody who, every child that never shows up on a Friday, those 20 kids will come on the Friday that your one extra staff member is sick. But you have to fight the urge. The AmeriCorps member has to do what is in their job description. Again, we'll talk about that some more. But if it's not in our grant, it's considered a prohibited activity. And on that note, prohibited and unallowable activities. Prohibited activities are listed under Section 6 of the member contract. And once your members sign their contracts, I will copy those and make sure you get a copy of them. But they've got a list, you've got a list in your binder. Review these carefully and ensure that the members at your sites will not be engaged in these. They fall under the categories basically of religious proselytization. I think I said that word, right? They can't proselytize. But I have had members in Salvation Army clubs. There are AmeriCorps members serving in churches. They can't do lobbying or advocacy work. I can't call all of your members and say, hey, it's Youth of the Year, we're going to the Capitol, you need to take these packets for your clubs. They can't lobby. And they can't do abortion services, or make referrals for that. I'm not really worried about that happening at a Boys and Girls Club, but so up here, sorry it's so small, but I tried to bold all the ones, and I figured we would go through the ones that I think are particularly difficult for Boys and Girls Clubs. A member shall not be considered an employee of the organization receiving assistance. So that would be you guys. You can't, which is tough because I know they're on your payroll and they're on your payroll like a salaried employee, but you can't think of, again, you can't think of them as an employee. All of our job descriptions at Boys and Girls Clubs at the bottom always says, and other duties as assigned, which basically means like, you're going to do whatever the club needs to keep it from burning down. They don't have that in their job description. They can't be pulled off of their AmeriCorps work and put on something else. This just means they have to do what's in that job description. They can't do duties formerly performed by another employee. So this is where you have a presently employed worker, somebody who's out sick. You can't take that AmeriCorps member and put them on that person's job. They can't substitute teach. They can't substitute watch the front desk. They can't substitute drive the bus. They have to do what's in their contract, which is power hour, BGCA targeted programming, community outreach, and then their AmeriCorps paperwork. Examples of employee displacement. Members may not serve in any of the capacities listed below and count hours. Janitorial, building maintenance, receptionist, substitute teaching, driving the bus, filling in for the secretary. Now, a common question that I get is, if the phone rings and the AmeriCorps member is standing by it, they should be a team player. They should be able to say, this is Megan at the Boys and Girls Club of Bartlesville, how can I help you? They should be a team player. If you have a day where you're like shut down at Christmas break and everybody's cleaning the club, then yeah, they need to get in there with everybody else and clean the club. Again, be good team players. Where we get in trouble again is we get short on hands, so we stick that AmeriCorps member in where we have missing staff or extra kids. We've really got to, you have to be vigilant about that, and you have to be vigilant about it with your other staff. Because, Sandra, you know that, but your, second banana might be, running the club that day while you're at a training, and they say, oh, the receptionist is out, AmeriCorps member, sit. That will also probably be the day that the Community Service Commission calls them to do a random check-in, and they're like, hey, AmeriCorps member, what are you doing today? You're like, oh, I'm answering the phone, Miss Amy. And they go, Megan's gonna be my next call. And they will call me because they know all my numbers. So why can they not do these prohibited activities other than it makes the federal government angry? It jeopardizes our future funding. They do keep this paperwork, they do read it. And if members perform prohibited activities, the hours spent on those activities will be disallowed. So if I find out that your member's driving the bus, I can't let them count those activities. It won't count towards their service hour requirement. And the way that the education awards work, if your goal is 900 hours and you stop at 875, you don't get a portion of that award. You get all of it, or you don't get any of it, unless you have what they call a compelling personal circumstance. But I couldn't count 25 of my hours because I was driving the bus is not a compelling personal circumstance.
They have to put in 900 hours.
They have to log 900 hours
in order to get this.
In order to get their $2,800 and change award. If you have an open staff position, this is another thing to say. If you've been, so let's say you have a program aide position or whatever you call your regular direct service employees, and that position is open, and you get AmeriCorps, you can't be like, oh, I'm just not going to fill this position until the end. You can't let an AmeriCorps, that is like direct employee displacement. Somebody who's on leave, somebody who's on medical, regular leave, medical leave, they can't replace that person. They can, if you have a staff person who has become your AmeriCorps member, who is interested in the education award, and they said, I want to sign up for this, you have to replace them. Which is not always the quickest and easiest thing to do, but I mean, it's something that like I will be calling you and I will be needing something in writing to say, hey, tell me the name of who replaced this person. So that if I'm asked, I can say, oh yeah, because it's one of those, it'll always be like that little bit that somebody will hear something and I'll be at the next Community Service Commission training and they'll be like, so I talked to so-and-so the other day and they used to work at that Boys and Girls Club. How does that work? I can say, oh, well, they're the AmeriCorps member now, and I have in writing that someone new has been hired for this position and is on staff there, and they are not alone in Power Hour. So that's how that works. And again, the commission, I didn't know this until the end of the year. The commission does contact members when we have our site visits. They need to talk to at least, they want to talk to 3, they need to talk to at least 2 of our members, and I'm not in the room, the program director is not in the room. We did them last time on the phone, and I just happened to see over the deputy director's shoulder when she was looking at other paperwork that she had marked on one member's thing that they were engaged in prohibited activities, and I was like, what was she doing? But I have no idea, because when I'm asking Sarah, I'm just like, are you doing this, or this? But they have their Community Service way or Community Service Commission way of asking it, that they are like the experts in sniffing out prohibited activities. I am not. So let's just all be really careful so that we at least have plausible deniability. And of course, if you're not sure, just call me. I will tell you the truth. And I want these members to be so helpful to you guys. So we're going to err on the side of caution, but we're not going to do it to the point that they're like not helpful in your club. That's why we say any BGCA program that has a curriculum they can teach. We just talked about displacement. If someone leaves, you have to hire somebody else. Okay, if a member is not in compliance, the Alliance will not give funding. That means I don't have funding to give to you. So that again, my job is to keep the money flowing. We've moved on to background check requirements, sorry. So these requirements, and I can tell you the 2 basic ones, they're right here. The NSOPW must be done before the start of service. This is a website that I go to, I plug in their name, I print out the sheet with the date stamp at the top. This is the National Sex Offender website. It cannot be done on their first day of service. It has to be done before their first day of service. Again, as soon as you give me their name, like that's what I'm doing tomorrow. I'm sitting down with the names of the people that you've submitted to me, and I'm running their names and all of your names through through this website. Fingerprint cards must be on or before the first day of service. Now, coming back up to this one, if we are out of compliance and they inevitably pull the files at site visits, you're like, just don't pull this one person's file. Oh, they pulled the file of the place where the site supervisor switched, near the beginning of the year, and I never got any of their startup paperwork and have been trying to get it back. I mean, like that's the file that they'll pull because that's my luck. They will, tell me that I have to disallow those member hours. B, they will tell me that they are not going to refund me for that member's living allowance. And if I've already paid it out, which will most likely be the scenario, they will tell me I have to pay it back. Which means I'm going to come to you and go, okay, I told you not to start your member until they got their fingerprint cards done. You started them. Now the commission wants, the $500 plus that we paid this kid after taxes and all, or after I reimburse you, like they want that amount back. The Alliance does not have a cash flow that we can just be like, oh yeah, cool, no problem, we'll get that paperwork next time, So I'm gonna be coming to you going, okay, Boys and Girls Clubs of the, you need to pay the Alliance so that we can pay the federal government so that we don't lose our AmeriCorps grant and everybody else who has an AmeriCorps member comes to your home. So this is really me protecting you. So these two things, there is no wiggle room, there is no slack, there is no mercy or begging or pleading. They have to be done. So down here at the bottom, while we're waiting for OSBI, members must be accompanied. This time is recorded in AmeriCorps. I'll show you the AmeriCorps page later on where members log their time, where you guys log your site supervisor hours. There's a box at the bottom that your member has to put until their fingerprint checks come in. During this month, on Mondays, I was accompanied by, or they could be, if it's the same person every day, because it's the same person they're in power hour with every day. Monday through Friday this month, I was accompanied by Miss Jan when I was leading power hour. They define accompaniment as being in the presence of. So if I'm checking on this classroom and checking on the classroom down there because I'm the program director, the Community Service Commission does not call that accompaniment. They call accompaniment being in the room with you, making sure that you are, because we don't have your background check back. You could be a murderer, you could be, grand theft auto. They need to, somebody has to be in there with you. We record that in AmeriCorps. It's actually pretty easy the way that you report it, but keep paper copies of time cards. Don't trust AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps is, I wrote flaky because there was going to be like evidence of me having things written down. AmeriCorps is actually the devil. It's like if Lucifer had a child that was a computer program, that child would be AmeriCorps. AmeriCorps will boot you out. AmeriCorps will not let you log in. And I said, Treasurer would not mind me telling you this, and Nawada, it will let her members in on the same computer, and they all get in, then it will not let her log in. And I mean, like, it just let them, and I'm like looking in on the back side of things going, nope, that's your username, that's your password. I mean, it's just, and it will do that to me too. You need to keep a hard copy of time cards and accompaniment. So, like on their time card, they can just write in next to it who it was, or I think for Adams, just sign the bottom of their time card. If you're the person who's accompanying them or have the person who is, just sign the bottom so that we have a paper record. What can happen and has happened before is if we have to go back and re-enter hours, like let's say your member enters their hours and they do this month, but something's not right, so I have to unlock them, or AmeriCorps is just evil and it doesn't let you enter anything for October. So in November, you enter all your October and November hours. I have to have anything that's not entered on time, I have to have a hard copy on file. Because again, if the Community Service Commission looks at that and says, why did they enter 2 months worth of hours in this month? Where are your hard copies? Because that just, like, you know, like I said, their smell, they get audited by the federal government. I don't ever want that to happen to me, but that's why, like, they are trying to sniff everything out so that they don't get in trouble. So I mean, these people are looking, and they are looking closely. So keep a copy of that. By moving to the reimbursement system this year, for groups that are new, last year I had everybody on my payroll for the Alliance, but that also means that I was paying for workers' comp. I was paying for Sherry Hooper and Halen Company to process all that payroll, and that was easily over $8,000 worth of cost that I had to pass on to clubs, because again, the Alliance just doesn't have, you know, that kind of, all our money comes out to you guys. We're not like keeping a big well of like backlog funds. So the reimbursement system seriously lowered the cost of this program, but it increased our paperwork accountability. That was the trade-off, that now said this has to be right before I reimburse you. I have to have whatever the Community Service Commission tells me to have on file, I have to have that on file before I reimburse you. Just so they can't come back later and be like, well, you have to get that money back, because we're Boys and Girls Clubs. We've spent that money. We've spent that money on our staff. We've spent that money on our kids. And none of us have the budgets where we can just be like, oh yeah, sure. You know, $500 is nothing. Here you go. So for the people who are watching this on the video, if you've made it all the way to the end, send me an email with your favorite color in the subject line. Now you guys know my secrets. You can't be like telling me like, if you watch this video,